Welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into the incredible life of a single man who led that's right, six, nations to independence. A figure whose name is literally carved into the map of South America, Simón Bolívar. Now, this was the fiery promise of a young, heartbroken aristocrat standing on a hill in Rome, of all places. It was a vow that would go on to ignite a revolution and totally reshape a continent. But how does a man of such immense privilege even find himself on a path like this? To really understand the man they called El Libertador, the Liberator, we can't just start with the battles. We have to go back to the very beginning. We need to see how a life of incredible wealth, shattered by devastating loss, forged one of the most relentless revolutionaries in history. Right, so Bolivar's story, it doesn't kick off on some glorious battlefield. It begins in one of the richest families in Caracas, with a life that honestly seemed destined for comfort and ease, but instead, it was defined by tragedy. I mean, just look at this timeline. The sheer speed at which his early life unfolds is it's stunning. He's born into a super wealthy Criollo family, that's people of Spanish descent born in the Americas, so he has everything. But then he loses both his parents, he finds love, and then just months later his young wife dies. All of this before he even turns 20. That kind of devastation could break anyone. For Bolivar, it completely remade him. And that moment, right there on a hill in Rome, that was the pivot. That's where he channels all this personal, crushing grief into this monumental political purpose. He swears an oath, not for personal revenge, but for the liberation of an entire continent. This, right here, was the birth of El Libertador. Okay, so making a big, dramatic vow is one thing. Actually pulling it off, that is a whole other ballgame. Bolivar's path to liberation wasn't some straight, glorious line. It was a brutal, decade-long slog, just filled with defeats, exiles, and an almost unbelievable level of resilience. You see, there was this huge gap between the dream and the reality on the ground. Bolivar pictured this noble, clean fight for liberty. But the war itself, it was vicious. To try and force people to pick a side, he issued his infamous decree of war to the death. It basically said any Spaniard not actively fighting for independence would be killed. The conflict had become absolutely merciless. And by 1815, you'd think it was over. I mean, the whole thing looked hopeless. He had tried and failed not once, but twice to set up a stable republic. He was defeated, he was broke, he was in exile. Most people would have just given up. But it's right here, at his absolute lowest point, that the story takes another wild turn. He gets help from the most revolutionary place in the Americas, Haiti. The Haitian president, Petition, who led the world's first Black republic, offered Bolivar money, guns, and ships. But this help came with a condition that would change everything. Bolivar had to promise he would abolish slavery in every single territory he liberated. And with that Haitian support, Bolivar launches what is, no joke, one of the most audacious military campaigns in history. He leads his army through flooded plains in the middle of the rainy season, and then he marches them up and over the freezing, deadly peaks of the Andes. Nobody thought it was possible. It caught the Spanish completely off guard, leading to this massive, decisive victory at Boyacá. And just like that, modern-day Colombia was free. So that victory at Boyacá, that was the real game changer. With that incredible momentum, Bolivar starts thinking bigger. He's not just freeing individual countries anymore, no. He is chasing a much, much bigger dream. He's got this one massive, almost crazy goal: to unite all these newly freed lands into a single giant republic, a kind of super state that could stand shoulder to shoulder with the great powers in Europe and North America. And he had a name for it: Gran Colombia. This was going to be his masterpiece. It was the political embodiment of his lifelong dream for a united and powerful Spanish America, finally free from all those old colonial lines on a map. And just look at the scale of this thing. It was absolutely huge. At its peak, this republic covered a massive territory. As its president, Simón Bolívar was, you could argue, the most powerful man in the Americas, the leader of a brand new nation that had been forged in fire. But here's the thing. Winning a revolution is one thing. Holding it all together afterward is something else entirely. And the very same regional passions that helped him overthrow Spain, well, they pretty soon began to eat away at Bolivar's grand project from the inside out. And just like that, the whole dream starts to fall apart. The political backstabbing gets intense. He's nearly assassinated in his own palace. He only survives because his partner, Manuela Sáenz, helps him escape through a window. Before he knows it, the great nation he built starts to break apart, piece by piece. All who have served the revolution have plowed the sea. Wow, I mean, that famous quote just perfectly captures his despair. To plow the sea, it means you work and work and work, and in the end, there's absolutely nothing left to show for it. In his final years, he felt like all his sacrifices, all the fighting, it had all been for nothing. Bolivar died in 1830, only 47 years old, sick with tuberculosis and convinced that his life's work had been a complete failure. But history, as it so often does, had other plans. You see, the fight over Bolivar's legacy really started the moment he died. In his own time, people were split. Was he a hero or a tyrant? Then, in the decades after, he was kind of reborn as this national founding father. And today, he's still an incredibly potent and, yeah, often controversial political symbol. I mean, you really can't deny his legacy. His name isn't just in history books, it's literally on the map. The fact that Bolivia and the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela exist is a constant reminder of the sheer scale of his impact. In a lot of ways, it's like Bolivar never really left the stage. His ideas, his image, they keep getting picked up and reshaped by countless political movements. Most famously, of course, by Hugo Chávez's Bolivarian Revolution in Venezuela. He continues to be this powerful symbol for change all across the continent. So where does that leave us? Who was he? A heroic liberator? An authoritarian dictator? A tragic idealist whose dream was just too big for the world he lived in? You know, maybe the real answer is he was all of those things. His life is this incredible, powerful reminder that tearing a nation down is one thing, but building a new one in its place is a completely different and often much, much harder battle.